The night was cold, and the city lights flickered like tiny stars in the dark sky. Emma Walsh sat in the back of a small car, her hands pressed together trying to stay calm. Her heart felt heavy. Tonight was her first real date. She had imagined something beautiful, maybe soft music, a cozy restaurant and laughter under warm lights. But the man she was meeting, Ethan Morrison, had chosen a small, cheap diner at the edge of town. As she looked through the window, the neon sign above the diner blinked, half broken like it was too tired to shine. Emma took a deep breath. Maybe he just wanted something simple. Or maybe she had made a mistake saying yes. The car's mirror showed her reflection. Quiet eyes, old jacket and worry written on her face. Still something inside whispered, "Give it a chance." But she couldn't shake the thought. Was this really worth it? What kind of man takes his first date to a place like this? Before we move forward, tell us in the comments, where are you watching from and what time is it right now? And don't forget to like and subscribe to Blacken, Wronged, for more heart-touching stories. Let's get started. Emma stepped out of the car and looked around. The street was quiet. Only the soft hum of streetlights filled the air. The diner stood there, small, old, and tired. Its red paint was fading, and one of the windows had a crack across it. Inside, she could see a few people eating alone, their faces hidden behind coffee cups. She had imagined a warm, romantic place for her first date. Maybe a spot where the lights were dim and a song played softly in the background. But this diner smelled of frying oil and burnt toast. The chairs looked scratched, and the tablecloths had tiny stains. Emma almost turned back. Maybe this was a mistake. But then she saw Ethan walking toward her. He wasn't fancy or stylish. His shirt was clean but old, and his smile was nervous yet kind. He looked real, not the kind of man who tried to impress, but someone who meant what he said. Emma smiled back slowly. For the first time that night, she felt a small spark of calm. She didn't know it yet, but this simple diner was about to change everything. Ethan opened the door for Emma, and a small bell jingled above them. The warmth from inside touched her cold hands. A waitress smiled weakly, wiping the counter with a towel that had seen better days. The air smelled of coffee and pancakes. Somewhere in the corner, an old jukebox played a love song no one was really listening to. Ethan led her to a booth near the window. His steps were unsure, almost shy, like he was afraid she might leave. He handed her a menu and said softly, "They have the best pancakes in town." Emma opened the menu. The prices were low, very low. Burgers, fries, pancakes. Nothing fancy. She tried to smile, but a small part of her heart sank. Still, she looked up at him. Ethan wasn't staring at the food. He was looking at her. His eyes held warmth. Not the kind that comes from charm or money, but from something real. Her disappointment began to fade, replaced by a quiet question in her heart. Was she sitting across from someone truly different? She didn't know yet, but one small act that night would test everything she believed about love. Their food arrived, a plate of pancakes for Ethan and a small salad for Emma. For a few minutes, they both stayed quiet, pretending to study their plates. The air between them felt heavy but not uncomfortable, just new. Then Ethan spoke first. "I'm sorry this place isn't fancy," he said with a shy laugh. "I just thought, it's simple and honest, like me." Emma looked at him, surprised by his honesty. "It's okay," she said softly. "I didn't come here for fancy things." He smiled, his shoulders relaxing a little. Slowly, they began to talk. Ethan told her how his father had passed away when he was a boy. He had to take care of his younger brother all alone. He spoke with pride, not sadness. Emma listened, her heart quietly breaking for him. She shared how her mother worked 2 jobs just to keep food on the table. Both of them had lived hard lives, but they smiled as they spoke, like they understood each other without needing many words. For the first time, Emma felt peace. The diner no longer looked cheap. It felt warm, alive. But something was about to happen that would show Emma who Ethan truly was. As they finished eating, Emma noticed something strange. Ethan kept looking toward the corner of the diner. There an old man sat alone, wearing a torn jacket and counting coins with trembling hands. When the man called the waitress, his voice cracked. "I'm sorry. I don't have enough for coffee today," he whispered. Without saying a word, Ethan stood up. He walked to the counter, pulled a few dollars from his pocket, and quietly paid for the old man's meal. He didn't want anyone to notice, but Emma saw everything. The waitress smiled and said softly, "He does this every week." Emma's eyes widened. Every week? She watched Ethan return to his seat, acting like nothing happened. He simply picked up his drink and said, "So you were telling me about your mother?" As if nothing special had taken place. Emma couldn't stop looking at him. He wasn't rich. He wasn't showing off. But in that moment, he looked like the kindest man she had ever met. Yet Emma didn't know that. A small act of kindness would soon lead to something that would change both their lives forever. Emma's heart felt heavy and warm at the same time. She had never seen anyone so humble. As she looked at Ethan, words got stuck in her throat. All she could whisper was, "You're a good man." Ethan laughed shyly. "Nah, just doing what anyone should do." But the people around had seen it too. The waitress smiled. The couple in the next booth clapped softly. The old man's eyes filled with tears, and he stood up, walking slowly toward Ethan. "Son, thank you," the man said, his voice shaking. "You reminded me that kindness still exists." The diner went silent. Everyone watched as the old man hugged Ethan right there, in front of everyone. Emma's eyes filled with tears. Something about that moment touched her deeply. She didn't care about the cheap diner anymore, or the small table or the noise around them. For the first time in a long while, she felt safe. But just when the night seemed perfect, a phone call came that would turn everything upside down. The phone kept buzzing on the table. Ethan looked at it once, then again, but didn't answer. Emma noticed his hands shaking a little. "Everything okay?" she asked softly. He smiled weakly. "Yeah. Just work stuff. Nothing big." But deep inside, something felt off. A few minutes later, he excused himself and stepped outside to take the call. The sound of the cold wind came in through the door, and Emma watched him talking to someone, his face pale. When he came back, his eyes were red, but he tried to smile. "Sorry, that was my boss. I need to leave soon." The old man and waitress watched too, whispering quietly to each other. By the next day, the story of the kind man who helped strangers but looked heartbroken himself spread all over town. Truck drivers told it on the road. The waitress shared it with every new customer. Everyone wanted to know, who was that man? But no one knew. Ethan was hiding a truth that could break Emma's heart. 2 days passed. Emma waited near the same diner window, hoping he'd come back. The chair across from her stayed empty. The cup of coffee beside it had gone cold. Just when she was about to leave, the door opened, and there he was. Ethan looked tired, his hands rougher than before, but his smile was real this time. "I'm sorry," he said, sitting down. "That night, my boss called to say my crew lost their jobs. I didn't know how to tell you." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "You were helping others when you needed help yourself," she whispered. He nodded. "But I wanted to see you again, not as someone broken, but someone trying." The diner grew quiet. Even the waitress stopped moving for a moment, watching the two of them. Ethan reached into his pocket and placed a small paper on the table, a drawing of a house he wanted to build with his own hands. "I'm not rich," he said softly, "but if you're willing to wait, I'll make this real. For us." Months later, the old diner closed for renovation. But behind it, on an empty lot, Ethan worked every weekend, hammer in hand, sweat on his face. Emma brought him lunch, sometimes painting beside him, sometimes just watching. Slowly, the wooden frame turned into walls. The walls turned into a home. Not perfect, not fancy, but theirs. When the house was finally done, Ethan carved 2 words above the door, "First date." Tears rolled down Emma's cheeks as she whispered, "This is where everything began." He smiled, pulling her close. "And where it'll never end." The townspeople still talk about them, the girl who believed in kindness, and the man who built love with his own hands. Moral, you don't need luxury to find love, just honesty and heart. Before you go, tell us, would you choose love in a small diner over a rich life without feeling? And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Black and Wronged, where every story reminds you that love still exists in the simplest places.